We know that despotic forms of government dismiss the significance and value of individual human lives. Today, we'll explore some implications of a government's dismissal of the right to life. Our host, Brian Johnston, has been a teacher at every academic level, from adult education and junior college down through high school, junior high, and even 5th and 6th grade. He has served in many capacities while advocating for innocent lives, as California Commissioner on Aging, as chairman of the California ProLife Council, on the board of the National Legal Center for the Medically Dependent and Disabled. He is an author and lecturer, a film producer, and commentator. And now here's our host, Brian Johnston.
Welcome back to Life Matters. We're your program on life, on culture, and the very real battle of ideas. And that's not a metaphor. There is a battle of ideas raging now. And the issue of life, the idea of the right to life, is at the very heart of many of these battles. What is a human life? Are we mere animals? Are human lives disposable? Well, those ideas are tossed around regularly now, but those ideas are very foreign to the founding of this nation, and in fact, to Western civilization. And where those ideas have been embraced in Western civ, and they have been at times, they were roundly condemned as being against the foundational structure of society. So we're seeing a battle of ideas in which the battle does involve whether certain human beings will live or other human beings should die by being intentionally killed. This is not a joke. This is not a metaphor. This is the real thing, and the right to life is actually at the heart of what's happening in this debate. Today's program, we want to give a special shout out to our new affiliate, KZ, in Sacramento, California. Just a great station in the Salem network. We had friends in Sacramento that really wanted to see and felt it was a good fit to be on KZ, and they helped us to make that happen. If you have a station that you listen to, a terrestrial station where you are, and would like to see Life Matters on that station, contact us at lifematters.life, and we'll see about getting on your local station. Those of you who listen by podcast, you know that on this program we talk a lot about some of the ideas that are being battered around. We talk a lot about the ideas that are at stake. And we also talk about the people who are trying to assert and reassert the foundational ideas of society, of Western civilization, and specifically our nation, what our founders gave us. You see, your right to be alive, from that inalienable right comes all your other rights. Your right to be secure in your person, papers, and property. Your right to keep and bear arms. That emanates from the fact that you are a unique human being. The government did not make you unique. The government has a responsibility to protect your life and the life of all individuals that may be at risk from others that may harm them. That's a premise not only of our nation, but that's a theme that's run through civilization, that the role of government is in fact to protect lives. We're going to talk today about governments where that idea is lost, where human beings are seen as things, as mere chattel, and that the government determines what human beings should do and not do. Yes, that is going on right now. That is happening in your world. We're going to talk about that with one of the preeminent experts on the issue, and that is Dr. Stephen Mosher of the Population Research Institute.
If you have questions or comments for Life Matters, call 800-924-2490. Give us your name and the town you're calling from and a quick question or comment. Life Matters continues after this.
Did you know that the most radical legislature ever in California history is preparing to pass some of the most radical legislation in American history when they come back in August? Are you going to stand for that? Join us at the Take Back California Conference with John Cox and many of the good pro-life legislators and candidates. Go to californiaprolife.org and register now for Take Back California, August 14th and 15th.
And now back to more Life Matters with Brian Johnston.
We're going to talk to Stephen Mosher at the National Right to Life Convention, which this year took place in Kansas City, Kansas. And it was a great gathering of people from across the nation and some from other parts of the world. I want to remind you, before I give you the background on Stephen Mosher, that there's incredible people in this movement. I would never have met them had I not been involved in this worldwide movement that asserts the basic premise that human beings are valuable. And they want to preserve that premise. That's what the Right to Life movement is out to do. And so if you'd like, go back and you can hear some of the podcast of people you may have heard of. Dr. Mildred Jefferson, one of the first presidents of the National Right to Life Committee, an extraordinary woman, the first black woman to graduate from Harvard Medical School. Truly a gracious and extraordinary woman. Dr. Bernard Nathanson, who is the founder of NARAL, the National Abortion Rights Action League. And then he realized how evil that was, what a terrible thing it was. He helped engineer Roe versus Wade. He actually changed his mind regarding abortion because he ironically was overseeing treating children in a children's hospital on one floor of the hospital, and then he'd go to the next floor where he was killing children that were even older and had no disability. And he was treating infant children in the womb, fetuses, on another floor because, well, those kids we wanted to keep. Kids you want to throw away? Well, he oversaw one of the world's largest abortion clinics, and the dichotomy was too much for him. That was Dr. Bernard Nathanson. Listen to that podcast. That'll open your eyes. Dr. John Wilkie, many-time president of the National Right to Life Committee and author of the book with his wife, Barbara, Abortions, Questions, and Answers, and that was in many iterations and really a very valuable resource. It's still available. You can still get copies of that. I recommend it. It's a great book. But the reason I say that is that there are people that have shaped your culture that don't get the kind of attention they need to. You don't know a lot about them because NBC, ABC, CBS, PBS, and TMZ doesn't honor them, and yet these people are extraordinary. And you should learn of them and read of them. And Stephen Mosher is just such a one. And many of those other three have passed away. Stephen Mosher is vibrantly alive, although I met him in the 80s. It seems like a long time ago. But Stephen Mosher is an incredibly brilliant man. Stephen is a polyglot. That means he speaks many languages. And I actually was at a conference in Madrid and didn't know he was there. And there he was giving an interview to Spanish television in Spanish. But his real mastery and what he's known for and his knowledge of Chinese is what has thrown wide open our cultural understanding of what was happening behind the bamboo curtain. As a Stanford University graduate student, he had actually been one of the first anthropologists into rural China once foreigners were allowed to come into the country. And there he saw an incredible thing happening where forced abortion was becoming routine in rural China, the famed single-child policy. Stephen's first book, Broken Earth, was literally earth-shattering, and that was published in 1984, exposing what was really happening in China. He was banned from China. They took away his license to be there, and it created an international incident. But all of those things were documented. And as that became public, I remember reading about that actually in Reader's Digest back in those days. And then I met him in, I think, 1988 at the National Right to Life Convention. He's written many other books about China, Journey to the Forbidden China, China Misperceived, American Illusions, and Chinese Reality, A Mother's Ordeal, One Woman's Fight Against China's One-Child Policy. These are important books that look specifically at this practice in China. We're going to talk about that in a little bit with Dr. Mosher, but you need to know that he has contributed greatly to America's understanding of how Chinese government really functions. His latest book, Bully of Asia, China's Dream, is the new threat to world order. That was published in 2017. If you'd like to know more about what's going on, and thankfully you're hearing about it more in the news, that China actually is the greatest threat to world order right now. And if you want to understand more, do read one of Stephen's books. Again, his most recent is Bully of Asia. So we're going to pick up when we come back an interview at the National Right to Life Convention with Dr. Stephen Mosher.
Life Matters continues after this.
Life Matters is sponsored by the California Pro-Life Council, the state affiliate of the National Right to Life Committee. To find out more on how you can help and be involved right where you are, go to californiaprolife.org. That's californiaprolife.org. We'll tell you how you can get involved in your local community, how you can be effective if you want to be a pro-life speaker. We have training programs and open doors of opportunity for you to speak on a life issue. If you'd like to donate your car or a boat, you can do that at californiaprolife.org. Car Easy makes it easy, and you find that on our website. We get the most of any donation program. Car Easy allows us to get the most out of your car. Maybe you're not getting the trade-in value you wanted. Maybe it's just not running the way it used to. Let your car be used for life. Go to californiaprolife.org and find out what you can do to make a difference. californiaprolife.org.
Be sure to subscribe to the Life Matters podcast with Brian Johnston. Go to lifematters.life to subscribe. And now back to more Life Matters with Brian Johnston.
Well, I'm at the National Right to Life Convention, and I'm here with an old friend, Dr. Stephen Mosher. And I told you at the beginning of this program some of his bona fides, and he's just an extraordinary man. And what a pleasure, Stephen, to spend time with you.
Well, it's great to be here at the National Right to Life Convention, and I'll tell you what, we've got a couple thousand really excited pro-lifers here because we're on the verge of having another pro-life Supreme Court justice on the Supreme Court.
It's very exciting. And we want to make sure that the listeners are prepared for the battle ahead, and that's one of the purposes of Life Matters, is to equip you to understand what the right to life is, to understand that it's an idea, and you need to be ready in the battle of ideas. It's actually an idea at the very foundation of the founding of this nation, that you are a unique individual endowed by your Creator with your rights, not by the government. And a little bit, I think Stephen has been talking to me about what's happening in China. As you know from my earlier introduction, he's an expert in China. He's been there personally. He has been where it really is happening, where the rubber meets the roads. And so what we have in the U.S. is a unique nation that's founded on the value of individual human lives. We can't lose that. We're now taking back that land. Roe and Doe will likely be overturned soon, but then we have to work to make sure those lives are protected. Stephen, can we talk a little bit about this whole myth of overpopulation? So common, and it's often unspoken, but it undergirds a lot of people's view of abortion. Even the unthinking person who thinks, well, at least that's one fewer kid. And I think that idea is so insidious and so common. So tell us about PRI's work on this and really the challenge of getting people to understand that, no, we need human beings.
Well, we do, and we say at the Population Research Institute that people are the ultimate resource. People are the one resource that you cannot do without, because we shouldn't think of people just as consumers because they're producers as well. Remember that every stomach comes with a pair of hands attached, and every mouth is backed by an intelligence, a brain, a creative intelligence given us by our Creator that we can use to improve our lives, improve the lives of our families, improve the lives of our communities. And so when you see a country like, say, Italy, which is dying, where the people are only averaging about 1.1 children per couple. You see a country that's aging and dying, where the economy is slipping, where stores are closing, factories are being shuttered. That's a very dismal picture. What we want to see in countries, and particularly in the United States, our own country, is a country where young people welcome children into their families, because children are really the only way that we can fundamentally provide for our future. I mean, having a child is providing for the future in the most fundamental way by providing the future generation. And without that future generation, a country, even the United States, would eventually cease to exist.
Exactly. So we have a situation that many of the folks, where you go to church, there's people in the pews next to you that believe global warming is a terrible thing, that human beings and their carbon footprint is actually a huge problem. And somehow, if we can just reduce that, and implicit with that thinking is the idea that human beings are the problem. And yet, as Stephen has pointed out, human beings are our only answer. So what are some quick points that people can make to their friends when they're confronted with that argument, when suddenly someone they thought was following the debates comes back and says, yeah, well, thankfully there's not going to be as many kids now?
Well, I think the future without children is a future that I wouldn't want to live in. A future without children is going to be a future without additional medical advances. A future without children is going to be a future without a cure for cancer, without a cure for Alzheimer's. We need more scientists. We need more engineers. We need more doctors. And those doctors and scientists and engineers only come from the children and grandchildren that we ourselves have. So we need to be out promulgating the most basic of pro-life messages, that life is a blessing, that bringing another soul into existence, bringing another child into the world brings joy and happiness and probably improvements to our lives and the lives of our communities. I recall one time talking to a population control enthusiast who got very upset when he found out I had 9 children. And I said, but you don't understand. You're unmarried, you have no children. My children are going to be paying your Social Security after you retire. And my children are going to be caring for you in the old age home and doing open heart surgery on you when you need it to be done, and going to be caring for you at the end of your life as well. So it won't be your children because you don't have any. And that was a way of illustrating the fact that children are blessings, as the good book says.
That's right.
They shouldn't be regarded as burdens. They're blessings to their family, to all of us.
Exactly right. In the introduction I gave you of Stephen, we talked about China, and he was really one of the first Westerners into rural China. Do you want to tell us just a little bit about how that came about and really what you saw? Because I think it's hugely significant. Your work and writing was hugely significant on this whole issue.
Well, I arrived in China in 1979, just a couple months after we had normalized diplomatic relations with that country. Remember, China had been hidden behind the bamboo curtain for 30 years. I arrived in China. I can speak, read, and write Chinese. I made friends in the village I was living in, and I was horrified to see when I arrived in China that the Chinese government, the Chinese Communist Party, had decided that there were too many Chinese in the country and too many Chinese babies being born. And you know what they did? They began arresting women who were pregnant, 7, 8, 9 months pregnant, and charging them with a crime. What crime? The crime of being pregnant without permission. Because from that point on, the government requires permission to have a child. These women were taken into abortion clinics where they were forcibly aborted in the 3rd trimester pregnancy. Some of these babies were actually killed at birth. That was the one-child policy that we've all heard about in operation, and it's continued that way down through the decades for the past 38 years. We've seen 10, 15 million abortions in China each year. Many of those abortions have been forced on women by a government that doesn't care what the women want, doesn't care what their husbands may want, but only wants to reduce the number of babies born. It's all a result of the idea that there are too many people in China and too many people in the world. But ask yourself this. China has eliminated 400 million of the most enterprising, productive, hardworking people in the world. Now they have a labor shortage in China. Now they have an economy that is refusing to grow at the rate the government wants it to grow. Now they have trouble hiring enough workers. Now they have an aging and dying population. You see what they've done?
Yes.
They've killed off so many in the next generation that they're now paying a price as a country for wantonly killing the ultimate resource, the one resource you cannot do without, human beings.
And you told us about the new change. The government wants to control everything. Again, you're quite blessed to live in a nation that says, no, the government should not control everything. Your rights, your life comes from a creator, and the government needs to be limited. In China, it's not. It's an unlimited government. And now they're trying to fix things again. Tell us about that.
Well, they went too far in one direction by eliminating 400 million Chinese in the womb and after birth. And now they've decided they need more Chinese young people. And so they went 3 years ago to a two-child policy, but guess what? Chinese young couples didn't start producing the number of children that the Communist Party wanted. And so now they're moving towards forcing young people to have children. And I think before the end of the day, before very many more years go by, we will see forced pregnancy in China.
Wow. So that is what is known as a dystopia. We've spoken many times in Life Matters about what a dystopia is. And some people who live in dystopias, in fact, if you read any of those novels, usually most of the population doesn't recognize that they live in a dystopic culture, a culture that is controlling their every action and really many of their thoughts. And you need to break free of that. We live in a land of freedom, but if you don't start thinking properly, a lot of the thoughts that are abroad here, even in our nation, are dystopic. Again, the population control people are most heavily funded, and a lot of the money is your money, tax money, United Nations family planning. A lot of this machinery of a dystopic culture that treats human beings as things that the government can control, that's actually coming out of America. And again, you may have friends and neighbors, people that you like and trust, and you realize, no, they don't get it. So we want you to get it. And Dr. Mosher, what else should people be aware of now as we're moving forward? Obviously, we have a chance to overturn Roe and Doe. And when that happens, I try to tell people in California, you don't understand. That's not going to stop a single abortion in California. All that does is allow the states to do what they have always done, is pass laws to protect those kids. Are you ready? Are you ready to help pass these laws? If you don't have an understanding of how the civic process works, if you don't have an understanding of what the issues are, we can't win. So on the issue now of overpopulation, on the issue of dealing in a post-Roe environment, what are some of the things that you think a good pro-life individual, a good normal Christianized individual should be doing and ready to do in their community?
Well, all politics is local. And so you've got to be involved with your local city council, your local county government, and of course at the state level. And as you just pointed out, the battle is going to shift here in the next couple of years from the federal level back down to the state level, because I believe with another secure vote on the Supreme Court, Roe versus Wade will be overturned, and the matter will then be returned to the states. And in the state that we're standing in right now, Kansas, they have a pro-life law on the books, and there won't be any abortions in this state. But in California, of course, where you and I are both from, I'm from the area around Fresno, California has had a pro-abortion law on the books for a long time, and we're going to have to fight long and hard in order to protect innocent unborn life in the state of California. I think we can win at the state level, but it's going to take everybody to become engaged, to become educated, and to use their social media network, to use their network of friends and family to communicate pro-life ideals.
That's right. And that's why wherever you are in California, you can be part of your local chapter of the California Pro-Life Council. It's the state affiliate of National Right to Life. If you're hearing this on another station or on the podcast, wherever you are in the nation, you can join your state affiliate of National Right to Life. That way you're working with the national team, but then get involved in the local chapter so that you have speakers going out, people who are educated on the details, who are giving a reasonable argument, because, our position is the reasonable position. Our arguments are the arguments that reflect objective reality. We're not merely talking about our own personal faith. This is about objective reality. Is this a human being or not? Very important that you have local folks and local involvement. So do that. Get involved where you are. Make a difference. Go to nrlc.org or californiaprolife.org for Californians, and make a difference right where you are. You've been listening to Life Matters and an interview with Dr. Stephen Mosher, one of the world's preeminent experts on what's really happening in China. Again, China is a culture that's very different than yours. It's where the government decides everything, and human beings are mere things that the government gets to play with. That's the opposite of how America was founded. And yet there's ideas being promoted today of collectivism, ideas about the human being and who should do what and why they should do it and why the government needs to intervene. Those are ideas that are actually what allowed China to become what it is. If you don't understand that you're in a battle of ideas right now, then you're going to lose that battle. It's very important that you and I recognize the times that are upon us and that we take effective, educated action to make sure that the right ideas go into place, that the right ideas become law. And as we've talked about before on Life Matters, ideas that are enforced are called laws. And there's been some kooky ideas introduced that people want to become laws. Some of those, some of the worst, have been introduced in the California legislature. And right now we're looking at the close in 2018 of the California legislature and some of the worst ideas they ever cooked up. We want to make sure to stop them. So if you're listening now in California, please come to Take Back California Conference. It's August 14th and 15th, and you can hear more about that if you go to californiaprolife.org, and you'll find out what you can do. If you live in California, this is your state. There's things that you can do. Don't just sit back and bemoan what happens. Be a part of making good things happen. And you can do that as a citizen. We want to equip you with that. Again, you're listening to Life Matters, your program on life, on culture, and the battle of ideas. We want you to do well. If you have any questions about anything that came on this program today, please contact us at lifematters.life or call our 800 number, 800-924-2490. Thanks for listening.
To follow Life Matters on all social media and to subscribe to the Life Matters podcast, go to lifematters.life, where you will find everything you need to know to share life, culture, and the battle of ideas with everyone you care about. Life Matters is a production of the California Pro-Life Council, the state affiliate of National Right to Life. Wherever you are in the nation, you can find out more at National Right to Life. You can find vital pro-life information and also find the access to your state and local Right to Life affiliate. Get informed and get involved.
Did you know that the most radical legislature ever in California history is preparing to pass some of the most radical legislation in American history when they come back in August? Are you going to stand for that? Join us at the Take Back California Conference with John Cox and many of the good pro-life legislators and candidates. Go to californiaprolife.org and register now for Take Back California August 14th and 15th.